So, three main things we're going to talk about today that Doug kind of wrapped up. Um, the role of AI in the marketing, how it's going to be really our friend and not so much a full replacement. Social media stuff that actually converts, depending on the type of business that you're in. And then ads that actually perform and how to get ROI, not right away, but a little quicker than what we may be used to from putting money out into the marketplace. So again, I'm Dave. I've been doing this for just over a decade. Started my company, and now we have 15 full-time people. We primarily specialize in home services and professional services, but we've consulted on e-commerce. We've consulted on government accounts, policing and fire accounts, those kinds of things. So what I'm going to talk about mostly today is, and I see most of you on the call and what businesses you're from, two main types of things. You're either in a business to consumer relationship, so you're selling directly to a customer, whether that's a service or a product, or a B2B relationship, so you're selling services to other companies like us. So when we talk about AI in marketing, I get this common objection all the time when I'm on sales calls. Hey, why do we need you when we have this really cool model that everybody knows about now called Chat GPT, right? And that's great. You've got Chat GPT. If you want to explore some more AI models, just to give you a little bit of their expertise and where things are, you may have heard about them. Google has a model called Gemini. It's actually really good for more of a research assistant. It pulls a lot more sources. A lot of educational institutions are using it. Actually, has paper checking and all sorts of stuff. Um, Meta or Facebook has Llama, which is really just a copy of ChatGPT. Actually, they poached some of the developers from that. And then a couple other ones like DeepSeek and a lot of reasoning stuff. But for everybody on this call today, and if you're new to AI, ChatGPT is a really good place to start. And that is really the best of the business in terms of research and development. They are one of the original gangsters when it comes to the AI world. And I'm going to show you how we're actually plugging that in for our own stuff in terms of content, but then where the line should be drawn in terms of how much we want to use it. Some mistakes. I'm going to start out with the bad first, and then we'll talk about the good. We do not want to put any proprietary information into here. We don't want to put anything that's secretive unless the CIA should know about it. That kind of stuff. Whatever you put into this machine, just assume that 40,000 people just got the same exact thing back out. Unless at the bottom here you'll see we have a paid workspace. You can actually pay for ChatGPT. That's where they make their money. And that basically creates an intranet of just your own data. So right now Spartan has Spartan's ChatGPT. Think of that as a website. It lives on its own. ChatGPT does not learn from anything that we put into the platform. So we are okay, like with our medical clients, to share some information and put in a little bit of proprietary stuff so that we can get the right things out. But what we really use this for is an anti-procrastination tool, right? We have 15 people on Spartan. Most of them are creatives, the noun. That is a person that does creative work. And they are never allowed to come to meetings without ideas, right? I can go to this platform and ask for a bajillion things. It might have helped me craft my outline here that I'm reading from you for this webinar. Just a little bit of stuff that we use it for is like, what kind of social media posts should I be doing? Challenge me on certain things, etc. We have different stuff set up for some of our clients, and the client data is being put into ChatGPT so that we can actually consult the model, kind of like a cloud of information about said client. So the ChatGPT model actually learns about our client, which could be your business or it could be your client's businesses, and you can ask it questions, and you can put in podcast clips, you can record audio right into it. You're basically making your own library of information to then pull back to yourself in a different format. So just to show you an example of that, we have a company that I'll talk about a little bit later called Forge that we're helping sell educational courses to contractors. The founder of the company did a 5 hour deep dive of his entire life story, talked about his upbringing, talked about all of his stuff. We actually turned that internal podcast into a language model. So we turned Ron, one of the founders of the company, into a knowledge base. So when we write content for this company, I don't actually need to speak with Ron. I don't need to ask him to retell me that story. I don't need to ask him for anything. It saves that time. Where I see that in general business use, if you have somebody that you want to put on LinkedIn that's an executive, or nonprofits a lot, their board of directors has a lot to say about the organization. You can put all of their insights into these models, and you can pull directly from that expertise of what we've talked about in committee meetings or what we've talked about in marketing meetings. And we can reference this stuff back tens and tens and tens of thousands of lines of data, and it will create its own original content. So that's that autonomy piece that we're talking about. We're basically creating something that sits up here in the sky that we can ask for information that we've provided to help shape the way that we want it to be. So what the hell does that actually mean, and how do we use it? I'll give you a real example. So for those who may or may not see our LinkedIn content at Spartan, I'm going to show you a post, and then we'll talk about LinkedIn in general. But what happens here is we have an entire model that is set up for helping us generate LinkedIn posts. So find a good one here to show you. It's not one of our newer ones. This is probably a good one. So we did a little bit of content. Now this goes back to the content thing of you physically have to, record yourself or get some actual video or some audio content. This is going to be for mostly LinkedIn, but it applies to all social media platforms. We want really nice editing. A good tool for this is CapCut, CapCut, and we'll send that out in the recording. It's actually a sister company of TikTok. Good hashtags, all that kind of stuff. But this entire post came out of a Chat GPT language model. Specifically on LinkedIn, if you're doing B2B sales, LinkedIn algorithm right now, it's 2025, likes a lot of spacing in between the content. If anybody's ever noticed that, you'll say, why the hell are people doing that? It naturally catches more in the algorithm, and we're actually getting, sometimes 30 to 45% more traffic per post just from adding extra line item spaces. Why? If I knew the answer to that, I'd be a billionaire. So that's the current strategy that's working. So what we did is I did a whole data dump, again, of my story, my coming up as a business. If you're an institution, it may be, get all the founders or the, senior team together and have them kind of just data dump to you as much audio as possible. That actually went into a model, a GPT model, which is what we call, these sections that we can set up for what we want them to do. And we generate all of our LinkedIn stories pretty much off of AI. We provide a little bit of perspective on, we went to Spartan went to a physical event. We talked about X, Y, and Z. I'd like a story that bases off of multi-generational stuff. For the chamber perspective, this is actually, we did a post on the state of the county, which I also spoke at. But tell me an actual real story that people would want to say, what's the next sentence? What's the next sentence? Now that could be a really good story about a lawyer at your law firm. That could be a really good story about how a bank survived XYZ hard financial times, either internally or externally. It's about the storytelling, and what I call it edutain now that we want from a content perspective, right? Users want to be educated and entertained in like 90 seconds. Um, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but as I'm watching movies and stuff, I feel my attention span continuing to get shorter. That's because scientifically it has decreased almost 65% since COVID. It's our job to keep you as glued to these screens as possible. So you got about under a second to catch somebody's attention on any social media platform. Or for all my young cats that scroll TikTok late at night or Instagram, you just go right up to the next post. It takes half a second, and then your dopamine level completely resets, and you're seeing a completely different business with a completely different ad, with a completely different way to try to keep you hooked. So, telling these stories in the right way, using AI's help, is good, but then we want to still take this, don't just put it in the platform, read it, make some changes. Chat GPT is really good, but it's not perfect. We have had posts that have completely been spelled wrong. I've had stuff that grammatically makes zero sense. You have to double check these models. They're pretty close, but like I said, you still have to take the human emotion piece of it, add that in, and then it's probably good to send out. In terms of stuff that shouldn't be automated, this stuff's great. We don't automate the content creation process yet. There are some things, if we have time, I'll show you. They're trying to do that, but it's just not there yet. There are models that can like recreate your face and you talking and those kinds of things. Um, they're just not ready. But emphasis on the word yet. Um, Pretty soon you think of like that AI clone model of you that can say whatever you want, and deep fakes and those kinds of things. They won't be deep fakes, they'll be real fakes. um, and that's something that we have to be concerned about from a marketing perspective, as to making sure that we are putting out all the accurate information that we want, and that it's going into safe and secure measures. But what shouldn't be automated, any of your client facing interactions. I know a lot of you on this call, and most of our clients still do in person sales, phone sales, Zoom sales. That stuff still has to get done. The guys who are trying to sell the AI phone systems, you might have seen an ad or two that, it's an Apple call and they go through a sales cycle or a customer service issue. That's really 1 to 5%, in my professional opinion, of actually being an implementable thing, unless you're a really, really large company and you're looking to save human time in a call center or reduce some sort of metric. But at the end of the day, humans still like to talk to humans. And that's going to be that way for a long time. The relationship building stuff, that is still all done by hand on our perspective. To deep dive on a B2B level, LinkedIn, you may have heard that word, sales navigator. That's kind of an automatic tool that companies do offer, that you can reach out to new prospects and try to make connections. Spartan does that in house, but we actually have physical team members that go make all these connections with new people. That should still be something that's done with a human touch. AI is going to be okay at that, but LinkedIn has platforms in place, and most of the other channels as well. But they have channels in place to block automatic activity, and your account gets flagged, and it's a real nightmare to try to get you unblocked from that. So most of that, hey, I want to connect with you. Hey, we might be a good fit for business to business perspective. We want to keep that stuff done by a human and put in personal touches, right? Everybody has seen trying to be sold in a LinkedIn message. I'm just going to find the next one for me. Yeah, like here's Deborah trying to sell me a DBA. I'll take one for free, but I ain't paying for one. But this is all automated. I can tell something wrote it. Sometimes they're like 4 or 5 paragraphs. Everybody knows what I'm talking about because you've seen them. You just skip, 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 skip. You want to be realistic in your connections and actually providing value to them, because that's what they want and that's what you want. And then your brand identity stuff, right? You can't beat guerrilla stuff. As the digital marketing guy, I will submit to sponsoring the right chambers of commerce. I'm on the board, so I have to say that. But the sponsoring the right chambers, doing your local community events, I call that being the mayor of your own town. That's a concept. You don't have to go that far to go that wide in that local community and really crush it. Um, I often joke with like the roofers and the siders and the remodelers of the world that we work with. They want to be the biggest and baddest in the entire state of New Jersey. I'm like, that's amazing. They don't have the budget for that. I said, but how about if just every homeowner called you in Gloucester County? And they're like, yeah, we'd still crush it. I'm like, don't have to go far to go really wide on that kind of stuff. So that's a little bit about the AI stuff. I know we were walking into social media stuff that's actually converting for us. That's a hard play, right? Everybody sells different things. You have longer sales cycles, really short sales cycles. But most of the people on this call, and I'll speak to that specifically, we're not a buy it right now business unless there's an absolute emergency, right? I'll use ServPro as an example, green and orange trucks. They're one of our largest clients here at Spartan. If somebody has water in their basement, that's an emergency. They're going to Google water damage and they're going to call the first somebody that picks up, right? But if I need banking or I need executive coaching or I need sales training, that is not a buy it right now business. That's at least a 3 to 6 to 9 month sales cycle. Um, and that's got to be a consistent measurement of content, content, content. Nobody knows what you do. Nobody cares. So why should they? Right? It's a constant reminder of, hey, I'm Dave and I do this really well. And it might take 15 to 20 times of nailing that into somebody's head before they fully understand. I've known people for over a decade and they still think I do IT. It's just how it is. I started out as an IT nerd. Sometimes you can't shake that stuff. So it's about the consistent reminder of in these posts, and I'm hyping on LinkedIn today because we're talking about that a lot. But this applies to Facebook, this applies to Instagram. You always got to say what you do. Hey, I'm me, and our team helps you with digital stuff, right? Every single post, and you can tell AI to include this for you, has to have this kind of content built into it. And it's mixing the personality stuff, right? You got to give a little bit of personal brand um, mixed in with actual business insight, and getting that done in 30 to 60 seconds is tough. We're doing that for a law firm right now. Um, all these attorneys are coming in and talking about different divisions of the law and how good they are and blah, blah, blah. That's got to get cut down into 60-second clips of I solved this problem for this kind of human. And hey, we might be able to solve that problem for you too. And that's got to be done in under a second or two. Otherwise, I lose you to the next, 45,000 scrolls. I go back to that word. I've kind of coined it together, edutain, with the education side of it, of what you're actually solving, and then the entertainment side of it's good content. It looks nice. As I always used to say with some of our concrete clients, we got to make concrete look sexy, right? It's pretty difficult to do, but if you can provide a little bit of fun and a little bit of banter mixed in with that stuff, that's how we want to focus on some things. Um, Audience segmentation of what you're doing, right? When I say audience segmentation, I don't like marketing speak, so I'm going to explain that. Just where you're going to send your marketing efforts and what you're going to spend your time and potentially your money on that's going to actually work versus just saying, hey, I want to do everything really well. You might only need to pick one or two things, right? For a local hair salon, it's Facebook, right? Facebook and Instagram. For a commercial HVAC company that only wants to do business with other business, it's LinkedIn and maybe some email stuff. So you have to think about where are my customers physically going to be, and then how do I tie that in to a social media strategy that's not, you know, bothering them, but it's reminding them, right? We have some clients at Spartan that post 40 times a day. I'm going to say that again, 40 times per day, and they could still post more, right? We have some that post 4 times a year, and for their metrics and what they need to accomplish, that works for them because they're still achieving an ROI using some other metrics. So again, it's really business specific. Outside of all this, I'm happy to walk through that with anybody and any of you for no problem. But listen, it's LinkedIn for B2B, like we talked about. TikTok is a sleeper. After they brought TikTok back, if you're selling anything online, e-commerce, and Instagram for direct right to consumer. But we spend a lot of time Googling stuff, right? And that's where your buyer's intent is. I'm not going to get into all the Google Ads stuff today. I will call that a social media platform, but we did have one friend fill out the webinar pre-answer, Mr. Kyle Slane. I don't know if he's here, but I'm going to send him this little part of the recording. He's a financial advisor, and Google I would treat as another Facebook page at a very high level. So when I Google you or your businesses, right, and you can do this right now, this page that comes up, 99% of you probably know that this is something that you can manage. It's your Google My Business profile. So business agnostic of what you do, if you don't have this, you got to get this, right? Outside of everything else, you need this. You can post, get happy customer reviews. You'll get bad ones too. It happens. Nobody's perfect. And you can get things posted. You can tie in your Facebook and your Instagram. This is kind of a home base from Google's perspective. And you know what you do, and you know what you do really well. But as we always say, I still have to tell the robots, right? Google has to know. Facebook has to know. Instagram has to know. And they won't know until you tell them, or you set it up and you give them consistent content, blog posts, email marketing, social media posts into their slot machines so that we get more traffic out of it. Reminder, all of this stuff is free, right? Unless we're paying for ads. And why is it free? It's because we're the product, right? We pay for our own traffic to buy our own products and services. When I Google something on Amazon and then I'm scrolling back through on Facebook later that night and I see that product, Amazon's paying for that because they want me to buy it. Same concept for your business. But it all starts with Google and it spreads out from there. But the buyer's intent is typically a tiny bit higher if they're Googling something about you or your company. Like I said earlier, if I do water damage near me, got all these companies that show up, PuraClean, Restoration, all these people. Buyer intent's pretty high, so they'll pay the right amount of money to get into this stack, as well as paying for sponsored ads on Google, sponsored ads on Bing, showing up in your, in your local map, those sorts of things. I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole today because we're not talking about SEO and Google stuff too heavy, but it all ties back to each other, right? I get a lot of questions about content, right? Dave, how do we film it? How do we do it? How do we whatever? This is content right now that we're filming together, right? We're recording this webinar. You can't see it. There's a camera in front of me right here for my team, and there's more microphones here. Everything that you do from a sales perspective can turn into content. Everything you do from a community development perspective, that's when you go to the chamber events and you go to all these networking events, that can turn into content. But if you really are good at what you do, just put a phone in front of your face, hit the recording button, and start talking. It sounds really simple. Nobody wants to do it. I'm happy to walk you through and physically sit with you and watch you record it. That is how we're getting most of our stuff, right? You have to talk about what you do because, back to my previous point, nobody knows what you do. There's 47,000 other people that do what you do. So why should I care about what exactly that you're doing in that exact moment for that exact area? Of course, you're better, you're sharper, you're faster, you provide good service. There's a lot of people that do that. So they need to fall in love with your personal brand as you and or your owner and or your executive team slash salespeople to then come back and say, oh, I like this person and they are connected to this brand. That is social influence inside of social media. But one video, like this 30 to 45-minute webinar for us, and you'll see it on LinkedIn, is going to be, 10 to 15 videos. So 30 to 45 minutes of your time of really focusing on just talking about a problem or talking about something that happened without names and all that stuff. But that's what you can repurpose this content for. And we all love podcasts, right? Everybody's got a favorite podcast that they're listening to right now. They're pretty long. So people are used to that attention span of if it's real valuable content, they will listen to it. And there's data to track that, right? Spotify and YouTube, you can track exactly how many minutes people watched your stuff, where you're losing them, all that smooth jazz. But most of the content, the power of repurposing it is what's going to save you a lot of time while also providing really good value. The reason why we switched to this LinkedIn strategy exactly is because we had posts that started getting over 200,000 views per post. So that currently changed to the LinkedIn strategy. Now we're not hitting that all the time, but there are a couple whales. It's pretty much a 10% guarantee that if we post 10 of these posts like this, some of them will get, literally, some of them will get 100 impressions, and then we have some that get 250,000 plus impressions. It's the time of day, it's when it hits that algorithm, it's all little stuff. But if you're not consistent, waking up every day and trying to do this, you might miss that day where it might hit the virality and turn into some clients, which we have had happen for many of our clients as well as ourselves. So that's a little bit about the AI stuff, a little bit about the social media stuff. The next and the final topic, and before we do any questions and some real problem solving, if I haven't put you to sleep already, is ads that actually perform, right? So when we talk about ads, we talk about giving money to these platforms: Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Yelp, Angie's List, all these types of mediums, right? And we're paying them for leads, or we're paying them for impressions, which is eyeballs that look at your ads, right? For some people, that might just be brand awareness, where I want, billboards and those kinds of things, where I just want people with eyes on the brand. I will challenge billboards, but not today. I don't have time for that. But, Facebook ads, boosting some posts. We don't recommend that, but, boosting posts and all that fun stuff. If you run any of that now, some of the strategy to consider is what your offer is, right? What am I giving you value wise from a lead? And then what is the actual creative behind that of what the lead's going to generate for us? And then how am I staying on top of you? And we call that retargeting. So there's a couple little automation things that I'll show you here inside of our CRM platform that we have custom built out and have for many businesses. But basically, you're able to, and you can do this by hand, but this is all automated. When you think about a marketing workflow, right? I'm going to go really slow here because this is some technical stuff. You want to think about, when somebody sees an ad from our company, our nonprofit, our my brand, right? A paid ad. What do we want them to do, right? Do we want them to click it? Do we want them to call us? Do we want them to give us a phone number? Or do we just want them to see it, think about the brand, and keep scrolling? I see a lot of companies pick like all four and try to do all four at once. Pick one and do it really well. For example, we have a webinar coming up for this company, this Forge. I'll go back to that. All we want people to do, I don't want you to buy anything. Not yet. I don't want you to buy anything. I don't want you to do anything. I want your name and your email for my webinar. That's it. Very simple. I have one goal, one mission, and we back that in. Then, once that happens, we call that a trigger. Bang, fires, right? A whole bunch of stuff starts happening. The webinar is not until next week. And think about this like our event is not until next week. We want to know about it, so it sends us an email. It emails the potential lead. It texts them. It puts it on their calendar. It sends them an invite. And then 2 days before, it's going to get emails and texts and, hey, make sure you're coming. Make sure you're signed up for this. They're all in this workflow now, right? But what got them into this is a really well performing ad with a hook right in the beginning, like you've seen on Instagram, like this will triple your business in the next 90 days. And then, well, what will actually triple my business in the next 90 days, right? So it goes into the ad. But then, as you all know, we have attention spans of baby squirrels. So we scroll past the stuff. Did we lose that person? I may argue that we did not, because you have a thing called retargeting. So inside of Facebook, and I'll show you this if we have a little time at the end. Inside of Facebook, we have some platforms that will say if they, the people looking at our stuff, watch the video for more than 3 seconds, send them another video or send them the same video. That's the Amazon concept that I just told you, right? I look up dog treats, then I don't buy the dog treats, but then when I scroll Facebook, all I see are freaking dog treats, right? That is a retargeting ad because Amazon set up something like this that says if Dave goes to the page and if Dave doesn't buy, then send him ads on Facebook until he does. So that's kind of the flow of where we think about ads. The other thing is for more of our B2B consultative sales type people or our relationship sales type folks, where you may not be buying something right on the spot, they may come to your website, they may read around a little bit, bank. I already bank with this one bank. Why do I need this other bank? And they lose thought of it. Or if you're like any other business owner, you get enough papers on the desk like I have to, build a whole book. So you're busy. So they leave and then they're scrolling stuff later. There's some really cool tools, and this will be in the notes as well, but this is completely free. I'm about to show you. It's called Microsoft Clarity, Clarity, and it's for website technology to establish heat maps and recordings of where humans spend time on your website. When you click accept 47,000 times on a website, this is the data that we collect, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So this is Spartan's site, if it loads properly. So this is just in the past 3 days. I'll do the last 10 just to give you a little bit more data when it loads. So when somebody comes to the website, we can actually see where they click, what they do. Right now, this is inside of the ad section of where we lose people, right? So Dave, they clicked on my ad. We're getting good traction. They look like they're working, right? The statistics are really high, a lot of impressions, a lot of clicks, but we're not getting any sales. We're not getting any calls. Nobody's filling out the contact form. This is a very common problem. So we just look at where we lose them. So a lot of people want to know about the firm. A lot of people want to know what we do. Some people want to contact us. And then some clients we actually send here to, buy domains and buy hosting services and stuff through our third-party vendors. But I can see that for the last 10 days of those who gave me their consent, of course. This page here has, we're Spartan and we're great at this, and people click on the hyperlinks and stuff built into there. People are clicking on our processes. All of our main services are here. And you basically pull this up next to your main website and pull that all up. And then at the bottom, we have a big call to action that says, give us a free marketing consult. And people click on it. So we can see, you can do this for every page of your website, by the way, as nerdy as you want to get, where we're losing people. Now, you thought that was scary cool. Here's actual recordings of people that go to the website and what they do for the entire time that they're on your website. So why does this data matter, right? Is a lot of questions we get. So if you're starting a brand new advertising campaign, either internally or with an agency like us, we want to track how well we're doing, right? We're going to launch all these new landing pages. They're going to have all this content. They're going to talk about how sexy and sleek and fun we are as a brand. We do this really well. We do that really well. Great. Does it actually convert to customers? That's all I care about. And if you care about other stuff, marketing may not be the best discipline. But from an ROI perspective, we need it to convert to customers. So they don't always load right, but we can see exactly, I don't know who it is, but this is a user that physically just goes on the website, and this is their live data of reading what we do. And then they went to another screen, and then they were on there the whole time, and then they clicked off. So let me find something with a little bit more love here. Try to find something with some higher clicks here, so you can see how this works. This is all live data, so try not to give you like pre-created stuff. Here you go. So somebody came to our site from one of our clients, actually, which happens a lot because you have those little tags on the bottom. And then they were clicking on a whole bunch of stuff, and then we lost them somewhere. We can see where they click, if they're clicking on stuff, where things are at. So this person seemed to be clicking inside of an application. But it's that whole idea of I can see everything that you do on a website. And if you're on a landing page, I can see where you stop. I can see where you leave. So that may say, hey, that copy's wrong on that page. The creative's not right on this page. There's a lot of options here to physically track your success of all the stuff I just talked about in the beginning. Because from a high-level marketing perspective, in our opinion, everything starts and ends with a really good website. That's where we started in business. And all of these platforms are either going to go to a website or go to some variation of a website or of your website in terms of a landing page or an actual information section. So all of that to say, we can run the ads and we can spend the money and we can do the things, but if we're not setting clear ROI expectations, like what if we're going to spend $10,000 on an ad campaign, do we expect money back? Do we expect impressions back? Do we expect new clients? What do we actually expect from the marketing campaign? And then backing that into how do we stay in touch with these people? Does our CRM platform do kind of an automated reach out? Or do we have salespeople that are going to do that manually? It derives into many different forms of what you're currently doing rather than just running an ad and being like, well, we spent money and we got people to look at it. That's awesome. But unless you're the government and you just need taxpayer buy-in, that's probably not the actual business problem that you want to solve. So taking all that into consideration, I've only lost 75 people off the webinar. Means I did a really good job. We're talking about how AI is not supposed to do all that for you, but it can help. All the social media stuffs, and then how to actually run the ads and track the ads. So I just blabbed for about 40 minutes, and I'm sure we have some questions. Or I'm happy to walk through an exact problem that you have and just kind of give you some insights.
Dave, I'll jump in with the first question we have. Talk about Bing to the extent that you can. Is that worth the investment? If so, how is it used?
Yeah, so there's two schools of thought with like the Bings of the world, right? Listen, when you buy a new computer, the default browser is Bing. If you buy any Windows machine in the entire world, the default browser is Bing. So It is part of our paid ad strategy. Everybody always talks about Google Ads and Google Ads and Google Ads. Yes, a lot of people use Google Ads, but we also have to think about if I'm selling. Let's just gonna use a real client example. If I'm selling Medicare advice to senior citizens, like a Medicare brokerage, they're gonna just open their computer up and whatever browser opens is what's gonna happen, unless they've been taught to Google something. So we should be running Bing ads. All of the stuff I just talked about with Google directly applies right to LinkedIn, or excuse me, right to Bing, and that's where it's supposed to be. You're supposed to run a little bit of both, but if you have a smaller budget, Google's your better option to start. If once you get a little larger budget, then Bing's your a good add-on.
Cool.
Great question.
Candace?
I have two questions. The first one is when you were on the site and you were showing where what the live recording, if they don't fill out the contact form, can you figure out who they are, or at least where they came from, like relatively?
Yes, so I'll show you some details on that, and then there's actually a software that we have used in the past that can, it's a little weird, but it can guess. So, for example, we can see, it's called a refer. It's right here in the left-hand side. Let's see if I can give like a
Okay.
little dot right here. So I can see that this came from one of our clients who's a plumbing client. I can see that
Okay.
this person came from Google, and I can go back down and see where people are coming from. Like this person just found us directly. This person came from Yelp. This person came from Google. This person came from my business card, which is on Linktree, which is those poker chips.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's a tracking thing. Google Analytics also tracks all that data. Um,
Okay.
but there are a couple tools. I will find the actual name of it. We used to use it. I believe it's called Lead Post, LEADPOST. They, how they do it, I don't really want to know. Um, but they can guess. Everybody on Google has their own like little social security number in your mind, right? I don't know who you are, but I know what you search, what you like, how you act, websites you visit. I know a lot, right? Their AI tool takes that data, kind of zoom infos on the fly, and it prints out a guess of who it was. It was about 55% accurate, I would think. So if you were doing something really niche, yeah, you would have you'd probably be okay. Like if you're like, hey, if we're selling just to medical people or we're selling just to a certain class and that was guessing that person, be a pretty fair
Yeah.
assumption that it was right.
Yeah. And what was this thing called where you are right here?
This is called Microsoft Clarity, and I'll put the link in the chat and we'll send that out too. And that can
And
go on
that's,
any website.
can you only use it like if you, I guess, have a business, right? Like you can't see who's clicking on your stuff on LinkedIn by using Microsoft Clarity?
No,
Or
Microsoft
it's,
Clarity is for websites that you have full control over.
okay, gotcha. So
Yeah,
you have to have like a business website on the back end, and then you can use that to see what's going on your business website.
correct.
Okay.
The LinkedIn stuff would be in the LinkedIn analytics, which they don't give very much, which is a shame.
We have another question. I have a retail business. Is it worth it to place ads on Yelp and Google?
Yeah, if you're brick and mortar, depends on what you do. Um, if you're service based, probably a good idea to do map advertising, right? So just as an example, if I Google, barbershops near me, right? I'm in Deptford here. Um, if somebody's paying to rank for Deptford barbershops, Google will pitch my pin before it pitches the five other people's pins. You're physically paying, just like in search, you're paying to be above those other people. So, yes, if that's exactly what you do. But if you're like a bar or a restaurant or something like that, it's more of a post really good content, get a lot of happy hour stuff rolling, and kind of let the organic marketing take care of itself. I've never seen it very successful for restaurants to do it unless you're in a tourist type environment like Key West or something like that.
When you pay, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to pass it to Jen to close this out. So, Candace, if you have another.
Well, if we've got questions, I'd, rather go ahead, Candace.
So you could actually pay to be like the top line on the map for the near me, and is there like a competitive like price? Is that what drives it up so much? Like if I want to pay $1 and then somebody else is like, oh no, I'll pay $2 to get top line. Like is that going on in the background, or do they have stated prices so you know you're number one?
Yep, so nothing's fixed, right? And that concept is something I've coined the river of traffic, right? So I tell my home service guys this all the time. I can't make holes go into roofs. Well, I could, right? But I can't make that many people fall out of the sky for a service. So Google can guesstimate from being around for so many years of how many people are going to Google for XYZ service in XYZ area for set amount of time. So like we're going into spring, HVAC is going to be really popular. So that price that we have to pay to Google for those leads will go up. And then in the wintertime, it goes down. So it's a very flexible thing. But Google gives us predictive models on what we could expect in terms of money in, calls out kind of mindset. But yes, you can pay to rank as a local business for those near me searches. It's a little difficult, but with the smaller budget, but it's possible.
Dave, I have one question, and then we do have to wrap it up because it's almost 11. I mean, noon. You mentioned that Chat GPT. How long would it take you normally to like establish that profile of information, put into something to establish like a marketing strategy, or is it just really to push out content?
We use it both ways. So from an agency perspective, we take all of our client onboarding meetings, we take all of our client sales meetings, like as I'm selling them, we put all that into their model. We have it read their entire website. We have it do all those things. But if you just fed it the information that you want it can do it as quickly as you put the information in. It will conjugate and spit it right back out to you. But the more it's a growing thing, right? That's a hard answer. But as soon as you start, that's the worst that the information is going to be that's coming out of it. And the more that you give it, the better it can serve it back to you.
And then you can just keep feeding it. It gets smarter and smarter.
So like our LinkedIn stuff is on autopilot now. It knows me. It knows my personality style. It knows how I like to talk on LinkedIn. It sees, we give it the analytics of how well this post did, so it knows that people like that post. Right? Because think of it like your own marketing agency, right? You got to tell it, well, that did really well. Okay, so we'll do more of that. Not exactly, but we'll give it more of stuff. Yeah, you can tell it everything. Like, hey, that post got, the post you just wrote for me didn't get anything, but 2 posts ago got 200,000 views. So if you spoke that to me as an agency, it's like, okay, well, we do more of the thing that got us 200,000 views.
Right.